Welcome everybody back to TwilightClan. This is year 3 of the TwilightClan Clan Generator Challenge. There's lots to talk about this year, with lots of new faces and, as usual, a couple deaths. But you know the drill, so let's get right into it. Charstar's third year of leadership turned out to be relatively unremarkable in comparison to the first 2 years. Her apprentice graduated without too much issue. She managed to keep all 9 of her lives still, and she's even managed to get through a whole year without getting any more injuries to her legs. Good job, Charstar. Of course, she couldn't escape the year completely unscathed. She got her tail mangled by a dog. But just like with all of her past injuries, she pulled through, having just gained some more scars and gotten to spend a little extra quality time in the medicine cat den with her daughter. Logflake has continued to prove time and time again that Charstar made the perfect choice appointing her as deputy, despite how young she was when she took the position. She spent the first half of this year with her newest apprentice, Tawny Paw, as well as one of her former apprentices, Cinnamon Screech. Cinnamon Screech had asked to shadow his former mentor in training Tawny Paw in the hopes that it would make Charstar realize how badly he wanted an apprentice of his own. While you have to respect his ambition, it's hard to ignore that maybe Charstar has had a good reason to not give him an apprentice. He's not really shown himself to be the smartest cat. This year, during one of his patrols with Logflake and Tawny Paw, Cinnamon Screech found a bush of red berries. Thinking they looked like a great mid-afternoon snack, he impulsively munched on some. Of course, these were death berries. Tawny Paw and Logflake managed to drag him back to camp, where Snapdragon Valley got him to vomit up most of the poison. After a few moons of rest, he managed to recover, and his was one of the loudest voices at Tawny Rush's warrior ceremony. The she-cat was honored for her courage and her quick thinking. And, of course, Logflake could not have been more proud. Unfortunately, the celebratory atmosphere did not last long for these three. In Leaf Bear, there was a really bad snowstorm. It caused a few cats, including Cinnamon Screech, to freeze to death. Then, only 1 moon after the snowstorm, poor Tawny Rush got killed by a badger. Snapdragon Valley had a fairly relaxed year. Again, comparing it to the past couple years. She spent a lot of time thinking about her past mate, Burnet Spots, and learning how to move on from her grief. Little by little, she felt her heart begin to heal. She even began to entertain the notion of maybe pursuing something with Antler Days. Snapdragon Valley and Antler Days even went on a little date together to visit the burial grounds. Together they pulled some weeds and paid their respects, which made Snapdragon Valley start to feel a little bit better about her thoughts of moving on. In the end, nothing has ended up happening with them so far. You'll understand more why when we talk about Antler Days. Jaco and Rocktuft continue to hold the record for being the best couple in the clan. They both had a few challenges this year, but they faced them side by side, as they always will. Recall how last year I mentioned Jaco having a deep connection with the Dark Forest? Well, it seems that might be becoming relevant. This year, his dreams were full of dark and disturbing images of blood and of shadows. Rocktuft, meanwhile, has continued to amaze the clan with her fighting spirit, even as she is meant to be taking it easy in the Elder's Den. Early in the year, she found a snake in camp. Thankfully, she managed to get the venomous beast pinned and threw it out before it could bite anyone. As I'm sure you can imagine, this did not help poor Jaco's nerves. In some attempt to keep her mate grounded, as well as an apology for scaring him with the whole snake fiasco, Rocktuft found some maple seeds for Jaco to wear in his pelt. That way, he always has something to think of her. And then, at the end of the year, she had an even bigger surprise. She is pregnant. I can't wait to see their kids. They should be born probably in the first moon of next year. Next up, we have a new face to the clan, the 69-moon-old Stonefur. She was once a rogue called Rocky, and when she came to the clan, she at first asked to take a simple route and name herself Rocky Fur. However, when she was told of the cat Rock Tuft, she said she would just call herself Stonefur instead. She's a really wise and laid-back Molly, so she didn't want any sort of confusion or conflict. Besides, she actually thinks the name Stonefur suits her pretty well. It matches her pelt better, at least. So, sad news. If you guys remember that really pretty little kitty pet who was abandoned by her pregnant two-leg because she had red cough, sadly, she was not long for this world. In only the very first moon of the year, she passed away as a complication of the red cough. I'd like to think she at least got to spend some time surrounded by friendly faces, and she was considered a good enough and kind enough cat that she made it into StarClan, even though she lived almost her entire life as a kitty pet. I'm going to admit, this next little section of story is not one I think I ever could have seen coming. After a bit of a rough start to the year, wherein she got a sprained paw and some heat stroke, Vinetuft announced that she was having kittens. Seeing as she didn't have any romantic interest in anyone, with the exception of her old mentor, Rocktuft, everyone assumed she had chosen some random rogue or loner to father her kittens. Pretty similar to what Moonswarm had done. However, when the kits were delivered, the clan was surprised to find that Vinetuft was allowing Habika Fur to curl up beside them. These two had never had any romantic attraction to one another. They didn't even really like one another platonically. So maybe this was just a pairing of convenience? Or maybe it was an accident? Who knows? But the fact that Vinetuft felt comfortable enough to admit, yeah, Habika is the father, must say something. Sadly, their daughter, Frecklekit, was one of the cats that froze in the storm. Both Habika and Vinetuft were really upset by this, obviously. Habika's status on the moon that Frecklekit died said he kept thinking she was just sleeping. Not gonna lie, that one destroyed me. Their remaining kittens are both boys. We have the bossy Cherry Kit and the imaginative and peaceful Small Kit. Here is another of our new faces to the clan. Jellybean Ripple is a former kitty pet who joined pretty close to the end of this year. He had gotten separated from his two legs during a camping trip. Although he tried to follow them home, it turned out they were already gone from their home. it wasn't just a trip. They were moving, and they moved on without him. Since he hasn't been around for very long, not too much is known about him, but he can be pretty aloof. He's very smart, and he's a really fast runner. So the hopes are he's going to be a good hunter for the clan. And he's very fluffy, so he could keep them warm in the winter. Antler Days had a pretty eventful year. At the very beginning of this year, she had a run-in with a hawk. She got pretty scratched up and had to spend a lot of time in the medicine den. Though, if you remember last year, being in the medicine den wasn't entirely a bad thing for her, as she was growing a crush on Snapdragon Valley. During the time that she spent in the medicine den, the two of them spent time chatting with one another, and they began to see past one another's walls. Snapdragon could see past her coldness and see that she was actually a little bit of a lonely cat. And Antler Days learned to respect Snapdragon's choices of wanting to be a medicine cat and understand why she felt the way she had for burnet spots. The two of them, even, as I said, with Snapdragon, went on a little date together visiting the old burial grounds. So that definitely made the two of them closer. Unfortunately, Antler Days froze during the snowstorm. So that cut short any possible chance of a blossoming relationship with Snapdragon Valley. After Cinnamon Screech died in the snowstorm, Violet Fade is the last of her kin left in TwilightClan. Honestly, it feels like a miracle that she's still alive at this point, given her horrible luck. If you remember, near the end of last year, she broke a bone because she slipped on some ice. It took until the 4th moon of this year for her to recover from that. And of course, as soon as she was healthy enough to go out, she walked into a fight with a fox. Thankfully, the fox fight did not actually mess her up too badly. It only took like half a moon for her to be back on her paws. Though, thanks to all those injuries she's endured, as well as the joint conditions she was born with, she has permanent weakness in her hind legs. Despite not being very vocal about her grief for her lost kin, those who know Violet Shade can see she's been struggling a bit to come to terms with things. She took some tufts of fur and moss from Cinnamon Screech's old nest and added them to her own, trying desperately to hold on to just a bit of his scent. Rainwhisker had a pretty good, albeit somewhat uneventful, year. He got an apprentice, Flamepaw, pretty close to the start of the year, and training with her went pretty well. He actually found quite a bit of kinship with the younger Molly. They've both got underlying anxiety issues. Despite her natural nervousness and his own insecurity, Rainwhisker taught his apprentice to step out of her comfort zone and to speak up for herself when necessary. When she was made a warrior, she received the name Flamebriar. He's also pretty excited about the fact that he's going to be a big brother again. He still really misses his sisters. Moonswarm and both of her daughters had a pretty tough start to the year. At first, things seemed like they were going swimmingly. Both Moonswarm and Echopaw were seen out playing with James. At this point, I think James might just be everyone's best friend. Everyone loves James. Hawthornfur loved James. Moonswarm is besties with him, and now even little Echo is friendly with him, so it's nice having a close friend of the family around. The next moon, Echo Stripe received her name at only 11 moons old. As soon as she made sure that her sister wasn't too upset about this, she gave in to her excitement. She wanted to show everyone just how special she was and how she deserved every little bit of the honor that Charstar had given her by giving her a name early on. Unfortunately, on her very first patrol as a warrior, she ran into a rogue and ended up being killed. Moonswarm and Mimic Paw were both very shaken by Echo Stripe's sudden loss, but both forced themselves to push onwards and pick up the pieces. Mimic Paw received her warrior name at the age of 13 moons and is now called Mimic Wisp. Goldpaw had a little bit of a tough start to his apprenticeship. He was first assigned to a new warrior who you'll meet in a minute. Unfortunately, this warrior died. He got reassigned to Habikafer. Habikafer was a good mentor for him, but some of his grouchiness rubbed off on the younger Tom. But Habika also taught Goldpaw to be a really fast runner, and this has helped him get out of quite a few tough spots. He graduated with his sisters at the age of 12 moons old and is now called Goldtuft. Kagamine Rinpuddle was a former loner slash kitty pet. Because of her very long name, she was usually just called Rinpuddle. She joined the clan the first moon of this year and proved herself very quickly, convincing Charstar she was worthy of getting an apprentice by the second moon of the year. That apprentice was Goldpaw, so you already know what happened. Unfortunately, when she went out to scope a good spot to practice hunting moves, she saw a large dog on the territory. She sacrificed her life trying to lead the dog away, and although she died, she would like to think that she at least saved Goldpaw. Now we come to the final entry for this year. It's yet another former kitty pet. This one invited in at the beginning of the year by Charstar herself. Kokomi is an aloof cat, and she often seems to be off in her own world. The best way I can describe it is that if she were a human, she would be something akin to a goth or an emo. Stay with me here. This will make sense when you hear what she names her kittens. Because, yeah, halfway through the year, she announced she was going to have kittens. The thing is, unlike Vinetuft, who kept her kit's father a secret until the birth, or even Moonswarm, who is always making jokes about her daughter's unknown father, Kokomi was immediately defensive, and she even gave birth to the kittens in secret. This has led a lot of cats to believe there could be more to her past than she lets on. The eldest, Ashen Kit, is probably the only normal one. He is very self-conscious, and he's an avid mossball hunter. He's a little creeped out by his siblings. I can't exactly blame him, though, because Crooked Kit and Ghost Kit are both little weirdos. Crooked is quiet, Ghost Kit is noisy, And they both have morbid curiosity and are fascinated with the concept of death. Just little weirdos. I love them. Don't look into their eyes for too long, or you might see into another dimension. As always, thank you to all of the people that inspired me to create this, and to everyone who has continued watching. More episodes are already in the works. I've already started drawings for year 4, and I've played part of the way through year 6 at this point, so definitely stay tuned. And go ahead and comment who your favorite character is, and if you have any ideas for kit names or even warrior names, I do take suggestions, so throw them at me.